Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a storm that would change everything. My name is Rick Daly. I'm 59 years old. I live in Dayton, Ohio. I was just coming back from the floor when I saw Richard Blake standing in his office doorway, eyes locked on me like he'd been waiting. "Got a minute?" he asked. That tone. I'd worked under Richard for the past 10 years. I knew his regular voice, and this one wasn't it. I stepped inside, and the door clicked shut behind me. He didn't waste time. No greeting, no chit-chat. Just slid a thick folder across the desk like he couldn't get rid of it fast enough. "We're letting you go." Effective immediately, I didn't say a word. My body went cold, but my face didn't move. I stared down at that folder like maybe I'd read it wrong. A week earlier, I'd turned 59. My pension was set to vest in a matter of days. 30 years in that building, from sorting mail to managing the whole damn operations department. And this is how it ended. "Budget cuts," Richard mumbled, not even looking at me now. Budget cuts. That's what he called it. The same week they announced record profits in front of the entire staff. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. I leaned back in the chair, just for a second. My legs were buzzing like they might give out, but I wasn't about to show that. "You done?" I asked. Richard blinked. "Excuse me?" I said, "Are you done?" He didn't answer, just stared. So I stood up, grabbed the folder, and walked out. No scene, no raised voice. Just me and the quiet hum of the hallway. I packed my office in 10 minutes, didn't say goodbye. I could feel people watching, whispering from behind cubicles. Didn't matter. I had one goal, get out with my head up. But as I shoved the last box into the trunk of my car, a strange calm settled over me. Not sadness, not fear. I knew this wasn't just bad luck or timing. I'd seen signs over the past couple years, meetings I was excluded from, weird accounting numbers that didn't match, project budgets that magically balanced after I raised concerns. This was a setup. They wanted me out before I hit that milestone, before I became a liability they couldn't silence. And now they thought I'd just take it, walk away quietly. They had no idea who they were messing with. I tossed the folder on the kitchen table and didn't touch it for hours. The silence in the house felt heavier than usual. I made myself a cup of coffee, black, sat at the counter, and just stared out the window like the answers were going to show up out there. 3 months of salary. That's what they thought I was worth. Not even enough to make it to Christmas. But that wasn't the real insult. It was what came with it. A slick little clause saying I had to give up any future claims. Basically, if I signed that paper, I had to pretend none of it ever happened. I didn't need to read past the first paragraph to know what this was. A muzzle. A nice little trap dressed up like a handshake. I sipped the coffee and tried to calm myself down, but my hands were still shaking. I wasn't mad about the money. Hell, I'd lived lean before. I could do it again. It was the principle. 30 damn years of showing up early, leaving late, covering other people's screw-ups, doing the right thing even when it cost me. I'd reported shady numbers more than once. I'd flagged things other managers pretended not to see. Half of them looked at me like I was a problem for not playing the game. And now they wanted to bury me. I opened my office drawer, pulled out the old flash drive I kept hidden behind the pencil tray. I had copies of emails, spreadsheets, internal memos, years of it. I didn't even know how much was still relevant, but I was about to find out. I grabbed my phone and scrolled down to Frank Matthews' number. Frank used to be CFO before he left for personal reasons, which I now understood meant he saw too much and got the hell out. Last I heard, he was working with the SEC in some kind of advisory role. He answered on the third ring. "Rick? Yeah, I need to talk." It's about Stonebrook. Long pause. I figured something was going down. I got pushed out. Pension was about to vest. They're trying to shut me up. "Did you sign anything?" "No, and I'm not going to." We talked for maybe 10 minutes. Frank didn't say much at first, just asked questions. Then his tone shifted. "Look," he said, "if what you're saying checks out, you've got leverage. Don't sign anything. Let me help you run this the right way." That was all I needed to hear. I pulled the severance folder out of the trash and tossed it onto the desk. I had bigger plans. With Frank's help, I was finally going to have a chance to expose the truth. I spent the next 2 days holed up in my home office, surrounded by stacks of binders and old USB drives. Every report, every flagged email, every internal memo I'd backed up over the years. I pulled it all out and started sorting. It felt like digging through a graveyard, and with every file I opened, my stomach turned a little more. This wasn't sloppy bookkeeping or human error. It was clean, intentional manipulation, figures being shifted around to hide losses, fake numbers plugged into sales reports to boost quarterly targets. The longer I looked, the more obvious it became. I organized the worst of it into folders and backed everything up twice. One set for me, one for Frank. I sent him the copies through a secure drive that night and texted, "Check your inbox." It's worse than I thought? The next morning, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Unknown numbers, voicemails from HR, emails with reminder, severance deadline approaching. I didn't answer a single one. By noon, the call stopped. That should have been the end of it. But around 5, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Janet from HR standing there, clutching a thick envelope like it was radioactive. "Rick, can we talk?" I leaned against the doorframe. "We're talking." She looked worn out, pale, nervous. "Look, I know you're upset, but this can still end clean. Just sign the paperwork. We'll make sure everything stays professional." "Professional?" I said, laughing once. "You fired me a week before my pension vested. That what you call professional now?" She shifted the envelope like it was getting heavier. "This isn't personal. It's above my... It's not happening, Janet." I stepped forward. "I'm not going away, and I'm not signing a damn thing." She hesitated. "This could get messy." I locked eyes with her. "Good." She left without another word. That night, I double-checked every file, every note. I wasn't paranoid. Not anymore. I was prepared, because I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was going to take down every person who signed off on those lies. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how deep the corruption ran. It was just past 9 when the phone rang. No caller ID. I let it buzz twice before picking up. "Rick Daly," I said. A pause, then, "Rick, it's Kyle Henderson, the COO." I stood up, walked to the kitchen window. "Didn't expect a call from you, Kyle." "I'll get to the point," he said, voice low and tense. "We need you to sign those papers." "Not happening." Another pause. "Look, this could get ugly if you don't. Let's not turn this into something bigger than it needs to be." I didn't answer. "We're willing to offer a fair deal," he added. "More money. We can even backdate the paperwork so it doesn't hurt your pension." That part made me laugh. "Rick." I hung up. The next morning, I met Frank at a diner on the east side of town. Same place we used to grab lunch when he was still with Stonebrook. He was already at the booth when I got there, flipping through one of the files I'd sent. He looked up. "You did good keeping all this." I slid into the booth. "You see enough?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah, it's deliberate. That's what I figured." He tapped the folder. "But there's something else you need to know. Some of these patterns, they started before you ever joined upper management. This isn't just Richard and the current execs. The last board knew what was going on. Hell, they might have started it." I leaned back in the booth, heart thudding in my chest. So this was bigger than Richard. It started long before me. He gave me a grim look. "And they tried to throw you under the bus for it." We talked through next steps, how I'd formally submit the evidence to the SEC, how his team would monitor the response, how to prepare if Stonebrook tried to retaliate. By the time I left, the panic I'd felt when this all started was gone. I wasn't on the defensive anymore. The game was changing, and Stonebrook's leadership didn't even realize it yet. We walked into the federal building just after 10. Frank didn't say much on the elevator ride up, just gave me a nod and handed me a clean copy of my original report. My hands weren't shaking, but they weren't steady either. Inside the conference room, it was all business. 3 agents sat across the table, laptops open, notepads ready. The lead investigator, a woman named Angela Park, motioned for me to sit. "Let's get started." For the next 5 hours, they drilled into every single thing I'd submitted. Spreadsheets, memos, flagged invoices, expense reports. Angela barely looked up. "How did you first notice the discrepancies?" "Quarterly inventory numbers didn't match the shipping logs," I said. "I flagged it." Got brushed off. Frank chimed in. We cross-verified Rick's original numbers with Stonebrook's SEC filings. They don't line up. The questions kept coming. Who did I talk to about it? What was said in each meeting? Did I have timestamps on the email chains? I did. They asked about conversations I barely remembered until I heard the names again. Upper management, board members, vendors that were supposedly paid for services that never existed. I started to lose track of time. There were coffee refills, bathroom breaks, paper clips scattered across the table like stress relief tokens. But somewhere around hour 4, I noticed the shift. Angela's tone got sharper. She started taking notes faster. The other 2 agents exchanged looks every time I dropped a name tied to fake invoices or bloated sales numbers. They weren't just going through the motions. They were locked in. By the time we wrapped up, Angela looked me straight in the eye and said, "This is solid, Rick. We'll move forward with this." I exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. Outside, I stood on the steps for a minute and looked out over the street. I knew this wasn't over. If anything, it was just beginning. But now, I had something I hadn't felt since the day they fired me. Control. That night, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. It was a message from someone in Stonebrook's executive office offering me a new position. Strategic consultant, flexible hours, full benefits. Sounded sweet on paper. Too sweet. I called Frank. "They're trying to buy me off." He didn't sound surprised. Means they know they're in trouble. The investigation was now in full swing, but Stonebrook was still trying to cover its tracks. The story broke the following Tuesday. Frank called me that morning. "It's out," he said. "Front page of the business section. SEC confirms investigation." I pulled up the article online, and there it was. Stonebrook under federal review for financial misconduct, whistleblower at the center of the probe. They didn't name me outright, but it didn't take a genius to figure it out. By noon, the stock had already dropped 15%. Stonebrook tried to get ahead of it. They pushed out a press release full of vague language, reviewing internal protocols, cooperating fully, committed to transparency. It didn't work. That night, Richard Blake went on live TV. His jaw looked tight like he hadn't slept in days. He called me a disgruntled former employee with an axe to grind. Said I'd taken things out of context. I watched from my couch with a beer in my hand, shaking my head. They still didn't get it. By the next morning, reporters were circling like sharks. My phone blew up. Calls, emails, messages from newsrooms I'd never even heard of. Most of it went straight to voicemail, but one call came from a local guy I actually respected. Eli Jameson from the Dayton Ledger. He wasn't flashy, just asked for a few words. I agreed to meet him for a quick coffee near my place. He kept it simple. "How do you respond to the company trying to discredit you?" I didn't even blink. "It's not about me," I said. "It's about the truth coming out." That quote ran in bold print the next morning, right under a photo of Stonebrook's headquarters behind yellow caution tape. Not literal crime scene tape, but the message was clear. By the end of the week, the company looked like a ship taking on water. Board members were dodging calls. Anonymous tips started flying. Somebody leaked internal emails showing that the accounting fraud went back years, even before Richard took over. Frank called again. "We were right," he said. "This runs deeper than anyone thought. There are board members named in those documents who've been around since the early 2000s. Think they'll try to walk away clean?" I asked. "Not if we keep the pressure on." Stonebrook's executives were losing control, and I had the upper hand. 3 days after the press leak, the board scheduled an emergency meeting behind closed doors. I wasn't invited, didn't need to be. The writing was already on the wall. Frank texted me updates from inside sources. Richard Blake barely spoke. One board member walked out halfway through. Another threatened to resign unless someone took responsibility. By the end of the week, the company announced immediate leadership changes. Corporate speak for, "They're screwed." Richard stepped down. 3 board members followed him out the door. No fanfare, no statements. Just a tight-lipped press release and a reshuffling of titles. Then came the letter, a thick official-looking envelope stamped from the new CEO's office. I opened it at my kitchen counter with a pocket knife and skimmed the first few lines. They were deeply sorry for how I was treated. Wanted to make things right. Offered me my job back, full reinstatement, plus a generous compensation package, stock options, back pay, pension recovery, The whole deal. I didn't even think about it. I grabbed a pen, wrote one word across the bottom of the offer, declined, dropped it in the outgoing mail, and didn't look back. 2 weeks later, the SEC handed down their findings. Full report, public release. Stonebrook was hit with a record-setting fine for fraudulent reporting and investor deception. The numbers were brutal. Investors backed out. Contracts dried up. The company's stock never recovered. And me? I got a call from Angela, the lead investigator. She thanked me for my cooperation and said the Department of Justice wouldn't be pursuing charges against me because I'd never been the problem. Then came the last piece, the whistleblower reward. A percentage of the fines collected. I won't say how much it was, but it was enough. More than enough. I didn't spend it on anything flashy. Paid off the mortgage, gave a chunk to my daughter to help with her student loans, and took a short trip out to the coast by myself. First real breath I'd taken in years. They tried to erase me, tried to silence me before the truth came out. But in the end, the same truth they buried crushed them. It was over, but the company would never be the same.